So what type of business entity should I form, or what type of business formation should I make? Good question. And on the last video, we talked about where should I incorporate my business. This video, we're talking about LLCs, LLPs, DBAs, S-corp, C-corp, B-corp. What's a B Corp? A B Corp's just a certification. It's not an entity. Don't worry about that. It just means you're socially sustainable and you have some environmental performance that gets certified. Every 3 years, you got to redo that. And that's all that means. If you've seen LTD, what does LTD mean? All that means in the United States, at least, is you're a corporation. That's it. In UK, different, but that's not on this video. So jumping in here, to get started, you want to know what type of business entity should I form, or should you form? Start off with a DBA. Simple. If you don't want to use your name, start with a DBA. A DBA is a doing business as whatever. You don't want to use your name, start with that. It's called a fictitious business name. There is no tax liability, there is no tax breaks, and this is not a formation. This simply is you using a different name legally to represent what you're doing. If you're a freelancer, if you're a small-time worker, whatever you are, that's what you would do. If you want to skip that step, that's fine. But I have to tell you this, the DBA is only recognized within the states, each individual state. So the federal government mandates everything over all states. Then you have the states, which have their own governments. So like they say, a separation between church and state, it's a separation between state and federal. These are separate. A DBA is only recognized in the state system, state by state by state. The federal government doesn't recognize it. The IRS is the federal government. I want to just also touch on something in this video. You have liability. I'm going to be talking about tax liability on this video and future videos in this series. Tax liability and liability are different. Tax liability is related to tax. Liability is related to like liability, getting sued, the court system, laws. Totally separate. I want to make sure that we separate those and that you understand that as well. So jumping in, a DBA, doing business as, fictitious business name. You have to go down to the county clerk's office or one of the county buildings and you file for that. They make a public reference to it. You post it publicly in some ad or something like that so that nobody else claims it in that period of time. And then you get to use it. Simple. But the real answer to this question, what type of business entity should I form? Start with an LLC. Okay, unless you're a doctor or a group of doctors, accountants, a group of accountants, or lawyers and a group of lawyers, then you start an LLP, limited liability partnership, which simply means all the people in that partnership are liable for anything that happens. It's a professional type of business. Professional. Accountants are professional, lawyers, doctors, you get the point. So an LLC, a limited liability company, is basically a disregarded entity. And what does that mean? You've heard that before, but you want to know what it means. The IRS does not see an LLC as a business. They don't. So for tax purposes, this is where the tax and the liability separate. IRS does not see an LLC as a business because tax purposes, all that profit flows through the LLC onto you as the owner. So again, for tax purposes. Now for legal purposes, it's different. An LLC basically says, hey, I'm me, I have a business. If anything happens with that business, whoever it is sues the business, my personal assets are protected. My personal assets have nothing to do with the business. Now, unless they pierce the corporate veil, whole different video, don't want that to happen. So that's where the understanding has to be met, because a lot of people get this confused. Well, tax and liability, and there is tax liability. I'm trying to make this super simple and clear here. So the LLC is protecting you as the owner or the multiple owners against liability, legal liability, not tax liability. The IRS sees it as the profits flow straight through to the business, to you, so you're getting taxed. So with an LLC, you can elect to file as an S-corp, a C-corp, partnership, and all that means is you're still an LLC, so you're still protected legally, but with tax purposes, remember that separation, with tax purposes, you'll be taxed differently. And in very layman, simple terms, don't worry about any of that unless you're making $60,000 or more in profit per year. If you're making anything less than that, or you're just getting started, don't even worry about it, because it's not worth the hassle. And it is a hassle, because there's more paperwork involved. You have to file a Schedule K-1 if you're an S-corp. It gets more involved. So if you're just getting started, just file the LLC and just stay as an LLC, okay? Be taxed as a single member LLC or a partnership if there's 2 people or more. If single member, you have single member, sole prop, individual, they all fall in the same category. You've probably seen SM LLC, single member LLC. So just to keep that simple there. Now, again, all the profits flow through that business to you as the person. Now, statewide, states may handle this differently with the tax structure in the state. For instance, California, FTB, you have to also file as an S-corp if you want to be taxed as an S-corp with California as well. Even though you do it with IRS, doesn't mean it applies to state. Remember that state and federal are different. So now that we have that understanding, now that we talked about LLC, now that we know what a disregarded entity is, right? Now we got it. So what is an S-corp? An S-corp is not a company. It's not a corporation. It simply was created a while back for small businesses to be taxed differently. All S-corp is, again, it's not an entity. It's simply a tax status. That's it, a tax status. So wherever you've seen anything else, they're wrong. I can guarantee you it's simply a tax status. That's it. So you have to be an LLC or a C-corp, which is an entity, to file and elect to be taxed as an S-corp, just to make that clear. So an S-corp, why would you even elect to do that? Because an S-corp, you get to take a dividend. What is a dividend? A dividend is money that's left over after you pay yourself a reasonable salary. If you're going to be paying yourself a reasonable salary, you have to have a payroll set up. That payroll has to show that you're taking a reasonable salary. If you worked for another company in the same position, what would a reasonable salary be? It can't be millions of dollars and hundreds of thousands of dollars. It has to be reasonable. Then the money that's left over, that's what you're going to get taxed on, because that's the profits, okay? So just want to make that clear. An S-corp, like I said, more paperwork, tax preparation, scheduling a K-1, and the payroll. All of that goes into it. So now you can see why just stay with an LLC. Again, if it's $60,000 or more in profit, then you'll actually have some savings on getting taxed as an S-corp, and I have a different video totally on that. That's not what we're going to talk about here. So an LLP is doctors, lawyers, accountants. Talked about that? Yes, we did. So if you're going to be doing that, that's the tax structure and the setup for that. Now, a C-corp, why would you even want to do a C-corp? There's a couple of reasons that force you to do a C-corp, but more importantly, you would elect to be a C-corp and you would file to be a C-corp, making sure you're paying attention. Now, a C-corp, the profits can be kept within the business, okay, in a separate account, basically called retained earnings, and that account is tax exempt. So the profits every year are stored in this account and they can collect and they don't get taxed. So that's the tax benefit for a C-corp. But again, you got to be a big corporation and you have to have a lot of shareholders. Some of the legal requirements to be a C-corp, if you have 101 or more shareholders, if any of your shareholders are foreign, regardless, maybe a person or an entity, if they are, and again, foreign, outside the United States, if they are a partnership or a corporation as one of the shareholders, then it has to be a C-corp. And of course, multiple classes of stocks, that's a whole different video. We're not going to talk about this here. So as you can see, you're probably not going to be wanting to do a C-corp unless you're a big business, but you're going to want to elect to file as an S-corp if you're making $60,000 or more a year. And just start off as an LLC. So simply put, what type of business entity should I form? If you're just getting started in this, you don't know if your business is going to work. You haven't had a proof of concept yet. I hope you have, but you don't. You're just getting started. DBA and then LLC. Very simple, very straight to the point. Please go back, watch this video again. And the reason being is you'll learn a lot watching it a second or third time. I covered a lot of things very fast, so it's probably easier to go back, slow it down, and watch again and again. The next video in this series, what type of business insurance do I need? Multiple types of business insurance. Insurance is gold because it protects you. And trust me, the bigger your company gets, the more business you do, the more liability you're going to take on. And of course, you want to be protected because one mess up or one mishap, I'm trying to combine those, that could take your entire business out and possibly you as an individual. That's up. Next video, what type of business insurance do I need? Let's go.